Welcome back from the break. You're watching Business Sense and Emotional Intelligence, communicating your way to success. And I'm just going to show you now the second half of a presentation that was delivered for the Professional Speaking Association in London called Leadership is for Everyone. And if my eyes look a bit red, it's because it's literally just a few days before I spoke at my mother's eulogy. I hope you enjoy this second half. So if leadership is for everybody, what are the traits of leadership? I think if we think of somebody who we herald up as a good leader, we would perhaps nominate traits of wisdom, of compassion, of vision, of true character, of charisma. We would have a huge list of things. And so why can't all of us find those leadership skills in our own traits and in our own intelligences and become leaders ourselves? The answer came to me when I was introduced to a gentleman called Howard Gardner. Howard Gardner is an American psychologist, I believe, who wrote prolifically about multiple intelligences. Many of us at school, my generation, we knew, of course, about maths, English and science. If you didn't fit into those categories, well, you were good at drama or quite good on the sports pitch or whatever your thing was. When I was at school, I felt I had no flag I could wave. But I was the only one at boarding school at that particular time who had passed their driving test for the first time. And to me, that was the only flag I ever felt that I could wave at school, because I didn't fit into the maths, the English and the science. I had two incredibly bright brothers. So I deemed myself not particularly intelligent. So of course, when you make silly mistakes and people make ridiculing comments about what you've done or said, well, that just ticked my box. It just confirmed the fact that I wasn't quite bright enough to know what other people knew. Howard Gardner says there are 8 intelligences. I have his books here, 2 of them, he's written loads. One is where he talks about the multiple intelligences and attributes. And the other is 5 Minds for the Future, which many educational bodies have talked about, and they've indeed had him in as a guest speaker, where he identifies there are 5 intelligences for the future, for our future generation, and those intelligences are predominantly around emotional intelligence and not necessarily IQ. In my personal experience, once I understood that I had very high intelligence on the EQ, I then actually finally saw that I actually have a high IQ as well. So if you like, the blindfolds were taken off. So what are those intelligences? Linguistic is one. These are people, yes, they may be able to speak multiple languages, but also these are people who are very well read. I love it. I say that they can actually spot a spelling mistake before opening an email. They will see it, grammar, what have you. It glares at them like a beacon. Numerical intelligence. This is my husband. He's a chartered accountant. If we are having a mismatch in language and what have you, very often I think of that accountancy brain and think he needs it in columns and lines. That's how he thinks. He needs the logical brain and the logical content and the logical delivery. It's got to make sense. Interpersonal intelligence. That is another one. These are people who have a high social network. They're very, very good at befriending people. They're very good at compassion and empathy and looking after people. And every time I talk about these, remember the word intelligence. Another one, intrapersonal. How self-smart are you? How well do you know yourself? How good are you at putting your hand up and say, do you know, I'm really sorry I got that wrong? Or how good are you at saying, I know most of you don't agree with me, but I stand by every single word I say. It is an intelligence of self-knowing of who you are, your life purpose, your confidence, your mission on this planet, and the confidence to articulate it, or even in silence, to just stand by it. Another one, aesthetics, musical and cultural. My family are quite musical, but also these are people who will think of the cultural impact, who will embrace culture and see culture for the goodness and the diversity that it offers us. Another one is kinesthetic. People who are very, very good at movement, sports people who are adept and what have you, very, very good at organising things in a physical way, if you like. You only have to look at either a game of squash or indeed a game of football. These people have to read, they have to anticipate, they have to be very, very agile, and so they are using a very high intelligence achieving those goals. Another one is moral. Moral intelligence. Where is your moral bar? What is your moral code? And how often do we know that we stand there and say, oh, I wouldn't do that. And I think we would all do that on certain things. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't behave like that. And maybe that's where your moral bar is high. But let us not be too high and mighty, because sometimes then our moral bar might be slightly low on something and somebody else is saying, I can't believe you did that. I wouldn't do that. The key thing about the moral intelligence is knowing where your moral bar is and resisting, if you like, the pressure to break your moral code. Sometimes people can act angrily or inappropriately and we don't know why, and this can often happen actually in loving relationships. And we say, do you know, I don't know, it's so inappropriate. Why have you behaved like that? And sometimes people behave like that because they've broken their own moral code and they're actually cross with themselves. But they will actually put it on you or on a situation. It just appears to be inappropriate. And the very last one is spiritual intelligence. And that is about us being spiritual human beings with a heart and a soul. If you see people behaving inappropriately, I'm not saying that we go, oh, don't worry, you're protecting your heart and soul, that's okay. We don't condone bad behaviour. But 99.9% of the time, people are behaving for a good reason. It may be inappropriate, but it is for a good reason. So how can we be leaders if we are also sat there with our baggage going, well, I can't herald up and speak out on, let's say, moral intelligence because you don't know what I've done in life. My behaviour has been appalling at times. All I would say is join the club. So's mine. But I still believe that if I adjust my behaviour, I say sorries where I can, and I aspire to be a good leader, it will help me adjust my behaviour so hopefully I make fewer mistakes, and that I can have the authority to be an example to other people, even though I've cocked it up. Because to be perfect human beings, we have to be perfect at cocking it up. That's the nature of being a human being. So, the hero who saved my daughter's life. That coach driver, in my view, was a leader. He showed all the attributes of leadership using high intelligence. He kept that coach on four wheels by on purpose taking it into that central reservation. He took that impact in a massive way. And do you know, I don't even know the gentleman's name to thank him. They had to cut him out. He had 2 broken legs, broken ribs, and a broken arm. And it happened this time of year 2 years ago. I should think it ruined his Christmas. Part of leadership, I believe, is creating followers. There's no point in being a really good leader if you don't have followers. During my mother's funeral service, that church was full. So I would suggest she created followers. So I'd like to encourage you, look at where your strengths are. If you don't know, ask somebody. They will tell you where your strengths are. Read further and explore those 8 intelligences. Find out where your strengths are and then work on excelling. Please don't let your past hold you back from where you're supposed to be in destiny. And I believe all of us are supposed to be leaders. And so when you are asked, when at the end of your life will you know whether you've been successful or not, you will be able to smile and say, I excelled, I was a leadership in my own way, and I created followers. And all of it working towards the greater good. Thank you very much, PSA.